Before we get started, I want to thank some very special people. These people support my work every month, and that makes it possible for me to plan ahead and, know that I can work on the podcast for part of my time. So thank you to these wonderful people. Thank you, Melisandre. Thank you, Madison. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, PB. Thank you, Sandy, Anto, Sue, and Kathy. Thank you, Madison, again. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Adam, Erica, and Ray. Thank you, Antonia, Sandy, and Nairi. Thank you, Serena, Reed, Trinda, and Carrie. Thank you so much, Bella, Jay, Charlie is a good boy, Bob, and Lori. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Elle, Kat, Sven, and Valerie. Thank you, Matthias, Emily, The Dash, Ariana, and Charlotte. Thank you so much for supporting my work, Marie-Hélène, Patricia, Annie, Dewey, Amber, and Delisa. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Nathalie. Thank you, Thea. Thank you, Shirley. And last but not least, thank you, Chicken Nipples. If you too support my work recurringly, and I have not mentioned your name here, that's because I don't want to assume that I'm allowed to. So just let me know in a message on Patreon or the website or an email that I can include you in this list, and I would love to thank you. Thank you so much all, and let's get started. Welcome to the Lesbian Romantic Podcast. This is part 39. No, this is Worth the Risk, part 39. Anyway, the title of this episode is Smells So Good. You smell so good. Nathalie purred as she buried her face in Raven's neck. Raven's cheeks hurt from smiling so much. The scent of dry grass tickled her nose, almost making her sneeze. She stretched her legs and tightened her grip around Nathalie, pulling her closer. Oh, this is great, Raven sighed happily, staring up at the branches of the tree that gave them cover from the midday sun. I love this park. Me too, Nathalie said and slid her hand under Raven's shirt. I like to think of it as the Central Park of Ghent. Raven chuckled. I can see why. Nathalie was stroking the bare skin of Raven's stomach. It made everything inside Raven pulse with desire again. She didn't understand how her body could still be so sensitive after a night of intense lovemaking. They had gotten up late in the morning, having slept only an hour or so. Raven would have stayed in bed even longer, but her stomach had decided otherwise. They had skipped dinner the night before, and her belly was grumbling nonstop. Nathalie's fridge had been empty. There wasn't much to find in her kitchen closets either. Sorry, I usually pick something up on my way to work, Nathalie had explained. And that's what they had done. They had dragged themselves outside to pick up breakfast. Then, Nathalie and Raven had brought the pastries and drinks with them to the park for a late morning picnic. Nathalie had brought a blanket, and they'd picked this spot under a beautiful tree. Breakfast had taken a while because they couldn't stop kissing each other whenever their eyes met. After the food was gone, they had lied down to kiss some more. Now, about an hour later, they were still cuddling and kissing under the tree. It was getting warmer and their skin was clammy. Raven marveled at how good all of this felt. Her heart filled with joy whenever she glanced at Nathalie's beautiful silhouette. The only fitting word to describe this feeling was bliss. I want to stay here forever, Nathalie sighed. With you. Raven nuzzled Nathalie's hair. Me too. Her throat tightened as she calculated how many hours she had left. Only 24 before she had to get back on a plane. Leaving tomorrow is going to hurt, she said softly. Nathalie nodded, but remained silent. Raven kissed the top of her head tenderly. She sniffed Nathalie's hair again, wanting to store the memories solidly in her mind. She wanted to remember every detail when she was back in Atlanta without Nathalie. I'm going to come back as soon as possible, Raven said. Maybe stay a couple of weeks. I should be able to work from here. I just need to get my boss to approve. Oh, that would be so wonderful. Nathalie sighed, her fingers running up and down Raven's side. But won't your sister and mother mind? Raven closed her eyes when Nathalie's fingers reached the wire of her bra. No, she said after a few seconds. Her nipples hardened as Nathalie's fingers kept teasing her. My mom is doing well right now, so I think a few weeks away it won't be a problem. Oh, okay, Nathalie said and nodded. Her fingers stopped moving. Do you still think about Lifty? Raven laughed. Lifty, the robot? Nathalie's hand rested on her chest. No, not that often. I think part of my motivation to invest in Lifty was guilt. You know, about how much pain my mom is in. But she still is, isn't she? Nathalie asked softly. Yes, she is, Raven said and pursed her lips. But I guess I realized I can't fix that no matter what I do. I can only be there for her when she needs me. She took in a deep breath. I'd have loved to make a difference for other people, but I still can, in many other ways. Nathalie stroked Raven's skin again. That is true. Raven glanced down at her. What happened to Bart? She asked, surprised at herself for not thinking about him sooner. Then again, she had better things to do and talk about. Nathalie snorted. Last I heard, he laid off all the staff and started a new company immediately. I think he sold the plans for Lifty to that other investor. That's sad, Raven sighed, feeling bad for the people who had lost their job. I'm glad you got out in time. Oh my God, Nathalie replied. So am I. It was all very stressful then, but leaving that job was the best thing that happened to me in years. Bart is such an asshole, Raven thought out loud. I can't believe I didn't see it before I got here. It took me years, Nathalie said, sounding pensive. He was very good at selling himself. Don't be too hard on yourself. True, Raven replied, frowning. But I should recognize that type of person. I'm in sales after all. I really must have been blinded by what I had wanted to accomplish. Nathalie pushed herself up a little and placed a tender kiss on Raven's cheek. We all get blinded by the things we don't want to face at times. That's a profound statement, Raven said, eyebrows raised. She met Nathalie's gaze. Blushing, Nathalie tilted her head. I did a lot of thinking these last few months. Raven grinned. My girlfriend, the philosopher. I like the sound of that, Nathalie said and kissed Raven on the lips. That you're a philosopher? Raven whispered against her lips. No, Nathalie said, flicking her tongue over Raven's lower lip. That I'm your girlfriend. Raven groaned. Me too. She suddenly pushed Nathalie down on the blanket and rolled on top of her. She pressed her lips on Nathalie's. Nathalie immediately deepened the kiss, making Raven's blood thrum in her veins. Her hips rolled into Nathalie. They both moaned. Fuck, Nathalie gasped after another intense kiss. Why are we in this park? Chuckling, Raven said, I have no idea. She blew out to breath and pushed herself back up, looking around to see if anyone was watching them. Nathalie giggled. Maybe we should go back home? Yeah, Raven said, lying back down on her back next to Nathalie. I don't want to get arrested. That would be bad, Nathalie replied with a grin. You would miss your flight, though. I probably would, Raven laughed. And then they'd send me home the day after and tell me never to come back. Nathalie laughed too. I doubt that. You don't get arrested that easily here anyway. You sure about that? Raven asked, more seriously. Even if you have North African heritage and are male, for example? She asked, nodding at a young guy who walked by and fit the description. Okay, fair point, Nathalie said, sighing. Her eyes grew sad. Raven entwined her fingers with Nathalie's. Do you think I would get a fair shot here? In Belgium? Nathalie met her eyes. She chewed her lip as she thought. In some places, yes. In others, not so much. There are a lot of idiots here, too. Yeah, Raven nodded. They sure are everywhere. She stared up at the blue sky between the branches. She pictured herself living here in this small country in Europe. She'd have to learn a new language and start from scratch. But it might all be worth it. Raven smiled. She couldn't believe she was even considering this. Something in her gut told her to take any leap that needed to be taken to be together with Nathalie. But she also knew their relationship was still fragile. She would have to be patient and take it step by step. I'd love to introduce you to my parents next time you're here, Nathalie said, sounding a little shy. What? Raven chuckled, surprised. If you want to, of course, Nathalie continued, squeezing Raven's hand. Yeah, I think I'd like that, Raven said, a smile spreading across her face. What made you want to? Nathalie sat up and crossed her legs. If I'm going to be traveling to Atlanta a lot, I better show my parents that I'm in good hands when I'm there. Plus, I try to share more about my life now, and you will be an important part of it from now on, so... Raven nodded, smiling so hard her cheeks hurt again. There's no way you can come to Atlanta and not meet my mom and sis, by the way. Is that so? Nathalie giggled. I'm nervous already. You should be, Raven joked. Oh, God, Nathalie said, scratching her cheek. Raven sat up too, grinning. You have nothing to be worried about. But I get it. I start sweating when I think of meeting your parents, too. It's not just that, Nathalie said, looking down at her legs. It's just, we're really going to do this, aren't we? Raven took the time to breathe in and out a couple of times before replying. Yes, I am in this 100%, Nathalie. I tried to move on with my life after meeting you, and I just can't. Not without giving us a real chance to be together. Nathalie's cheeks turned red as she nodded nervously. I feel the same way. It's just that... She tilted her head as she looked for words. With us living so far apart, things have to get serious pretty fast if we want to see each other more than every few months, you know? Yeah, Raven replied. We can't just have a date every few days and take things slow. Nathalie laughed. I think we never really took it slow. Very true. Raven laughed too. She grabbed Nathalie's hands and pulled them to her lips, kissing all 10 fingers. I love you so much, she said in between kisses. I want to build a life with you. I want that too, Nathalie said quietly, leaning over for a proper kiss. Raven cupped Nathalie's face and kissed her with all the passion she felt. A warm, hopeful feeling spread across her chest. It was so powerful that she had to gasp for air. This is who I belong with, flashed through her mind. This is it. This is what it feels like to meet the love of your life. Her head spun with the intensity of her feelings and thoughts. Did I tell you that you smell so good? Nathalie hummed in her ear. Raven closed her eyes and pressed her cheek against Nathalie's. No, I don't think you have. Nathalie giggled. You smell so good, she repeated. And you feel like home, Raven said, leaning back to look deep into Nathalie's eyes. She saw the intense love she felt reflected there. Their mouths met, and the kiss that followed was more intense than anything Raven had ever experienced. It didn't take long before they packed up and hurried home. This was part 39 of Worth the Risk. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for spending time with me. It's always a privilege. This is not the last episode of Worth the Risk, but the next episode is. So this was part 39, and part 40 will be the last time that we spend some time with Nathalie and Raven for now. What comes after that? Well, as I told you last time, I've made some decisions, and I'm still sticking by those, and I'm telling some people that I talk to through Patreon, for example. So yeah, I think I'm really going to do it, and I think some of you will definitely be happy about it. Yeah, maybe you can guess. It's a sequel. All right, that's enough. More will follow. See you next time. Bye.